Just about everybody settled in. So we're going to go ahead and kick this thing off and get people going. We're 3 minutes over the hour, so we're doing pretty good on time. I am Josh Lee. I'm, if you haven't met me yet, I'm the director of education and development for Tamio. I'm your host for this webinar. So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for being part of our fantastic conversation. I can't wait to try the ginger root beer from Zevia. We today are going to be talking about surveys. As you all know, we like to measure things, and we want to know how to have effective surveys for local government. So how do we collect feedback? And we have a great list of panelists that they're going to be here to do this. So right now I'm going to hand things off to Connie Odom. She's going to introduce your speakers and be the moderator for the session. But I just do want to mention, obviously, the chat is open. We'd love for you to ask questions, but please put those in the Q&A feature so we don't miss those. And we're going to try to save time and answer as many of those as we can on the back end. We're also recording the session. We're going to post it afterwards so that you'll have access to it later on. So with that, I'm going to mute myself, and Connie, take it away.
Thanks, Josh. Connie Odom here from Williamson County. I'm the Director of Communications and Media Relations, and I'm really excited to introduce this panel to you. We are doing our first community-wide survey this year, so this is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and we have some different perspectives for you. So we have a survey company along with one of their users who's going to be talking about their surveys. So first up, we have Zen City. Eyal Feder is the CEO and co-founder of Zen City. He is founding COO of Tel Aviv University's Interdisciplinary and Research Center for Cities and Urbanism. He also served as the executive director of the Garden Library, a community education nonprofit organization in Tel Aviv. He's been a member of the World Economic Forum's Future of Cities Advisory Board and was the youngest board member of the Israeli Planning Association. And with him, we have Jennifer Sordelia with the City of Seguin. Jennifer's been the Public Information Officer for the City of Seguin since December of 2018. And prior to that, she was with the City of Victoria for a number of years. She's an experienced communications and marketing professional with a demonstrated history of working in municipal government and higher education. And Jennifer is a graduate of the TCU Certified Public Communicator Program. So we are going to start with Jennifer and Eyal.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'll kick it off and hand it over to you, Jennifer, but really, really excited to be here. Really excited to share the stage with Jennifer and have an opportunity to showcase and support the incredible work that the City of Seguin is doing overall, and specifically with the survey that we'll be sharing, and to share the stage everybody with the rest of the great cities here and our good partners in FlashVote and ETC. So I'm excited for the conversation today, and I'll just say that I'm a huge fan of government communicators. You all have one of the hardest jobs in the world. You're always understaffed. You're always crushing it. So thank you for taking an hour out of your busy day to talk a little bit about how to use surveys to measure community sentiment. So Jennifer, I'll share my screen and hand it over to you.
And I just wanted to say hi to everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. We have been a client with Zen City since 2018. So right around the same time that I started working here, we started working with Zen City. So I'm happy to have Eyal with me, co-presenting with me today to discuss the survey component of their platform and how we utilized it to gain public insight before implementing a stormwater utility rate that would impact our residents. So as we all know, charging our residential and commercial customers a new fee is never something fun or popular, but it was the best way for Seguin to begin addressing drainage problems in our city. Funds collected from the stormwater drainage utility fee helps the city have a dedicated source of funding to address our rapid residential and commercial growth that we are currently experiencing and the impact that it has on our drainage infrastructure. The survey conducted by Zen City was a key component in this process, and public input gathered helped us make some decisions regarding how much the stormwater utility fee should be.
So before we hear from Jennifer a little bit about the survey itself and what incredible work they did promoting it and getting responses and how it was actually used to shape this really, really meaningful policy changes. Again, just want to give a word about ZenCity. So Seguin was one of our first customers in the US. And today I'm proud to say we're one of the largest community engagement platforms out there. We're proud to serve about 300 agencies from Austin, Dallas, Houston, all the way to tiny communities in Texas and 42 other states. And our goal is to really help build trust with the community that you serve. One of the challenges that we hear a lot from the communication professionals that we work with is that really hearing from the entire community that you serve is challenging because the tools that we have on hand are somewhat limited. The public meetings, which are really, really meaningful and effective, sometimes are a bad data collection tool. For example, one of the communications professionals we work with calls this the STP problem, the same 10 people that always show up to every community engagement forum, every meeting. And a lot of the other tools that we apply are always hitting those same people that are our regular audience. And the big question that we are obsessed with is how can we hear from more members of the community? So ZenCity's platform, which again, today is live in hundreds of communities, does a few different things to bring together, and a lot of them we've been honored to partner with Seguin. One is social sentiment analysis. So we look at what people are posting on Nextdoor, which we have access to, and Facebook and Twitter and other sources. The other is running representative surveys, which we'll talk a lot about today. And we even have an engagement platform where you can spin up websites and get feedback, or an experience survey platform where you can connect to your services and get feedback directly on them. So that's a little bit about us. And I want to turn it over to you, Jennifer, to talk about the work that Seguin did with the community survey.
So, and this all started occurring back in 2021. Actually, it started occurring in 2019, but because we wanted to have town hall meetings and COVID had occurred, we really weren't able to do that. So fast forward to 2021, we worked with ZenCity on a 7-question survey that was conducted over the course of a couple of months. We have the survey available in both English and in Spanish. We deployed the survey with a link on our stormwater page on our city website. We posted it across our social media platforms. We also shared about it in our series of public meetings. And we ended up getting 586 responses to the survey. And ZenCity quickly got to work compiling the data, and then they provided us a report that would detail the results. Again, just to reiterate, we did this community survey by promoting it on a link on our website during our public meetings. We had 2 town hall meetings. We also had meetings during the city council meetings. We posted it across our Facebook pages. We also had a link and a QR code that we included in a insert that went out into our utility bills. And then also we, of course, relied on our local media to help us spread the word and to share the QR code and the link as well.
And other than the survey itself, one of the other capabilities that Seguin used here is our social sentiment analysis. So other than running a survey, we can look at what people are proactively posting online on Facebook and Twitter and other sources and see what are they saying. And as the project moved into execution, which we'll hear from Jennifer a little bit more, one of the interesting things to see was what are people thinking about the vote that's coming up and what are their oppositions to it. And through analyzing hundreds of posts on social media, we were able to showcase what are the specific things that people had opposition to and allowed the city to adapt the campaign around the propositions to fit to the specific concerns the community have and ensure that the rollout would be smooth.
Okay, so obviously through the survey responses we received and the public outreach that we did and the engagement and all, we were able to determine some key observations in the decision-making process. And one that was very apparent was the need to reduce the original suggested stormwater utility rate that we initially had thought about doing of $5 down to $3 based upon the public feedback. And then roughly, we had about 71% of citizens surveyed who were willing to pay up to the $3 stormwater utility rate. So the city council approved the $3 rate in January 2022, but we didn't implement the fee until January 2023 because we wanted to provide citizens a year to plan appropriately for this new cost. Public reaction since then, implementing it has, taken a little bit of time for the community to get used to this and to kind of, get over having to pay another additional fee and understand the need for it. But overall, since then, the discourse has been pretty neutral. And then we also have an opportunity for our property owners, if they feel like they're not being charged the right amount, they can appeal this process on their utility bill for billing errors and inaccuracies. So overall, it's been a really good tool for us to use to gauge the public and to help us make this decision.
Thank you, Jennifer. So since we're talking about surveys today, I do want to bring this back to the question of how to think about what you're using and how. And I think this is a great example of how important it is to survey the community effectively or get input from the community effectively in order to make a big policy change. And as we can see, the results from the engagement here helped shape policy and helped change what the original plan was, $5 or $3, and helped pass that easily in council and then get support of the community. I think just from my perspective, considerations that I would recommend everybody have when thinking about what is the right way to engage your community are on two levels. One, if you're thinking about running a survey and there's incredible opportunities to do that, I think there's a few questions that are worth asking. One is, who are we reaching? Are we actually getting a representative sample? Are we hearing from the entire community that we serve? For example, are we reaching young people? Are we reaching non-English speakers? Are we reaching communities of color? People who traditionally are harder to reach through surveys? And is the survey a representative survey? Meaning, is this just whoever wanted to answer answers, or is this something that is tied to the demographics of my community? And then the other question is like, who is in charge of reaching that demographic? Do I need to promote it? Do I not need to promote it? And I'll say there's no wrong or right answer. There's different use cases for these different types of surveys. Sometimes you want to engage as many people as possible. Sometimes you want to get very accurate and scientific data. And those are just questions to ask. I think the other interesting question to ask is running a survey the right fit, or is it enough? What about capturing what are people sharing online? What about capturing what people are saying in the in-person meetings that Jennifer mentioned? What about engaging the stakeholders in an ongoing fashion as we're rolling out a policy change or a big difference? So I think the considerations that I want to encourage everybody to think about is both what type of survey or what type of engagement am I doing, and does it need to be scientific? Who's going to make sure it's scientific? If so, and are we actually going to reach everybody? And two, is a survey enough, or do I need another way to hear from the community? In our context, I'll say our approach has been that the community, to reach people effectively in surveys, we need to meet people where they are. And we know that where they are is online. Data from Pew Research shows that 96% of Americans are regularly active online. And that, doesn't mean everybody has the newest iPhone or broadband at home. Digital divide is real, but everybody's doing something online. They're maybe on social media. They're maybe reading the news. Maybe they're playing Candy Crush. They're doing something online. And if we do that, plus if we offer a multi-model engagement method, we're not just running one engagement opportunity, but we're doing a variety of activity that allows people who want to be engaged on different levels, we can really hear from a lot of people. So in that context, our tools allow, our survey methodology is based on finding people online with advertisements. We make sure that we reach people wherever they're spending time online by buying ads that target them and offering them to answer the survey. And in that way, we build up a representative sample. And then since we're all communicators here, again, have a variety of tools on top of the surveys. For example, social sentiment, we have a complete communications platform that helps you monitor and publish to social media. And that is across all platforms, including even Nextdoor, which we've partnered with very recently. So that's a little bit about the incredible work that Seguin did. And Jennifer, anything to add before we hand it over?
So the only thing that I would have to add is, you mentioned that we were, among one of the first cities to work with you guys. And over the years, your platform has really expanded and evolved with more tools. And we get a lot of use out of those tools too. So it's been great working with ZenCity.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you so much for the partnership. And thanks, Tamia, for having us today.
Great. Thank you so much for that presentation. I loved hearing about that and how you were able to adjust to what you were doing based on all that wonderful feedback. So thank you so much. Next up, we're going to be talking with Kevin Lyons with FlashVote and Ali Van Dyke with the City of Georgetown. Kevin's bio is interesting. He says, from data to democracy, Kevin Lyons studied lots of nerdy things in 2 PhD programs, so you don't have to. Now he is sought after keynote speaker and educator on government topics in the US and Canada. Why? Because after 30 years learning about good governance from Nobel Prize winners and top practitioners, he can finally explain everything you need to know in terms of pizza and beer. So that's the key, being able to reduce it down to something we can relate to. He is co-founder and chief scientist for Governance Sciences Group and co-inventor of the FlashVote survey system that collects statistically valid community input in 48 hours for government decision support. He has formal training from the Business and Public Policy PhD program at UC Berkeley and from the Chemical Engineering PhD program at UCSB, where he also learned to surf. So for Ali is the Director of Communications and Public Engagement, also known as CAPE, the Superheroes of the City. She started in Georgetown in January 2020, just in time for the pandemic. Prior to coming to Georgetown, Ali worked in communications for the cities of Austin, Texas, and Topeka, Kansas, where she honed her skills in communications. She earned a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Kansas and spent the first half of her professional career working for newspapers, primarily covering local government and special projects. She was named in the top 100 local government leaders by Engaging Local Government Leaders and has presented numerous times. So we're looking forward to hearing about your work with FlashVote.
Thank you. Delighted to be here. Love communicators, love Texas. Great panel you guys have assembled today. So hopefully you can make a good contribution, but I'm going to turn it over to Ali. I've got a little educational bit and a tiny little commercial for FlashVote. Hopefully it will be helpful, but Ali's the star. So
not true. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks everybody for joining. If you do live in the Williamson County, Georgetown area, you probably have seen our FlashVotes, or if you follow us, yeah, we talk about FlashVote a lot, and it's actually become something that our residents talk about in our public meetings too. So it's been pretty exciting. We started with FlashVote in like late 2022 after we heard Kevin's presentation at one of the conferences that we all go to. Hopefully you've been, if you see him on a conference agenda in the future, please go. It's really interesting. I think he's going to give you a little snippet today, but it's really fascinating. When we went into that conference, I think our team, we were frustrated by what we were doing with public engagement because we were being asked to do a lot of public engagement, but it wasn't representative. So we would get special interests take over, or we would, market the survey for a month and get like maybe 150 responses, which just isn't helping anybody. And we would do all of this work to get this feedback, and then the leaders would go in an entirely different direction anyways. So I felt like they were asking us to do a box check when a lot of us are in very growing communities. So we don't have time to do work that's just a box check. So we were frustrated, but I don't know that we were in search of a solution until we heard Kevin's presentation and everything clicked. We knew with FlashVote we were going to get a lot of really great benefits. The first is statistically significant representative of our community, which again, we weren't getting with our SurveyMonkey, Mentimeter, whatever surveys, and also the frequency. We had been doing the citizen resident satisfaction survey every couple of years, and we still do that. Otherwise, it was just hit or miss based on projects. And now with FlashVote, we try to do one a month. We've done 15 since the late October 2022, so we're close to that. But yeah, it's become something our residents kind of expect and look forward to on an almost monthly basis. So having just regular check-ins with our community, I think has been really beneficial for them and for us. They're quick and regular, like I said. They're really designed to take you maybe 1 minute. They're 5 questions. So our marketing is like, got a minute to improve Georgetown. It's really simple. And another thing is the marketing doesn't really change, right? We're trying to get people to sign up to the same place. So we're not marketing a different survey every time, we're marketing the same tool, which makes our lives a lot easier as well and starts building that brand recognition too. So that's been helpful. And the fast turnaround, right? Like working with Kevin, we can turn a survey around in like maybe a week or two. We're probably the ones delaying. He could probably do it faster. But the turnaround's really quick, and then the surveys are only live for 48 hours. So we get that feedback really fast. And I know, we try to keep surveys open like a month, but that's when we're marketing them individually as their own. I think we've got over 1,200 or so signed up for Flash Vote and routinely see 650, 700 people taking the survey. So we're still getting a really good participation, even though it's just that 2 days that maybe goes counter to what we usually do. So another great thing that we get from Flash Vote is the transparency. Once the survey closes, the answers are posted publicly and it sends you an email so you know that it's closed and you can go see it. This is something that our residents talk about all the time. There have been a couple of times when we've been presenting about communications or a project and I'm ready to move on and someone says, hey, don't forget to sign up for Flash Vote. It's been really great to see the community really embrace it. And one of the things that they talk about is being able to see those answers. A lot of the surveys we get, we have to distill it to some degree, right? Because there's so many open questions. And we need to give leaders something concise and meaningful to look at, but that's the beauty of their very short surveys. The way you can filter it a ton of different ways helps you understand the different needs of different communities and demographics. And then just a little like pro tip on the open survey responses, we try to have one in every survey. Leads to some very interesting feedback that's usually off topic. But that's fine. That's what it's here for. One of the things we've done is built a prompt in ChatGPT so we can run all of those into that and it spits out 3 takeaways and 5 action items. So we send out a report to all of our leaders that links the survey, so results. So if they want to go see them and they haven't yet, it's right there. But we also have a really concise report that they can go through and glean some top takeaways from as well. And then I think the last thing that I don't know that we fully appreciated when we signed on with Flash Vote was the level of expertise that we get in developing questions. I know we've worked with a lot of consultants and there are a lot of departments that they want to ask this question. And it can be difficult to push back on those when it's just internal staff. I think sometimes people want to lean on experts and consultants more than internal staff. That's happened to me a few times. That's okay. But with Flash Vote, I call them our public engagement engineers. They help us understand why we need to ask different questions in a way that those departments that feel very passionate about the questions they want to ask and understand, and they ultimately get us to a better tool and a better result. So Flash Vote is amazing in all of the different things it can do, but it's only as good as the information you put into it. And Kevin and his team really help us fine tune those questions, get actionable feedback from the results that influence what we do. So that's been kind of the big takeaway, even beyond all of the other things that I've been talking about, is having an expert that can help us push back when we need to develop a better tool. So yeah, I think that's all I had to say.
Well, thank you. I just want you to talk for another 5 minutes if you could. Now, hopefully people are getting a glimpse into, why Georgetown wins so many awards every year at Tamio. The department's fantastic. Allie's a tremendous leader. And like so many other cities in Texas, unlike other states around the US, by the way, there really is a focus on engagement, but quality engagement. And so I'll jump into a little educational piece that I was going to provide. Can we see my screen at this point? Excellent. Yep. Let me get the present mode. Okay, well, thanks. Yeah, so I'm Kevin. I'm a co-founder of Flash Vote, chief scientist, nerd, whatever you want to call me. Basically responsible for quality control in the surveys, and we just basically try to have the highest quality survey questions in the industry. That's what Ellie was just referring to. So as communicators, though, this is a great quote from a mayor in North Carolina. You're part of the team that makes a good decision for the community. And it's that decision. I think you get that sense hearing Allie talk. Like it's all about the decision, how we're going to make the decision better. What's on the table? how is input from the residents going to help us make a better decision, make a decision differently? And so with that focus, what's the problem we're trying to solve? Really, we're able to focus on the data that we need that we can pull out of people's heads. So interestingly, without good data, you're either lucky or wrong. And that's not a strategy, as they say. Hope is not a strategy. So with that, I want to give you a tool. When people are asking you to collect bad data, and we'll talk a little bit more about what bad data looks like, that you can use when you're explaining this to a colleague or an elected official or one of those pesky departments that's passionate about a really bad question they want to ask. Like, how great are we? Great or really great? I feel like there might be an answer choice missing in that particular set. All right, so pizza was promised. You got 10,000 people chipping in for pizza. You're the person that gets assigned the job. You have to figure out which toppings to get. What are you going to do? How are you going to figure out what everyone wants on toppings? There it is. There's the org chart. Looks just like your government org chart. 10,000 people, they pitch in, you get the job of figuring out the toppings. What are you going to do? Which of these things work? So order what you want. Are you going to do that? No, you're not a jerk. Of course, you're not going to do that, right? Ask your friends what they want and order what they want and ignore everyone else. No, of course, that's terrible. And in the government context, both of those would be corruption, basically. I got an idea. Let's call a meeting and talk about what pizza topping everyone wants. Okay, well, if the anchovy folks happen to come in the same van and there's 9 out of the 10 people there are pro anchovy, you're going to order 90% anchovy pizza for people? No, of course not. It's a terrible idea, right? Read social media posts, get the angry. If that's good, if you want to find out who hates particular toppings, especially because that side of the bell curve is always well represented. Maybe an online engagement forum, and then the Friends of Pineapple Pizza take it over, and then they crowd people out. You can just see all this happening behind the scenes, right? You can visualize it, and the visualization here is really important when you're explaining it to other people. It's a terrible idea. Do an online survey, create a link to a questionnaire, put it out in the wild. Well, is everyone going to take that at the same rate? Or are certain people who are really interested in the topic going to find it, share it with their friends, and so on and so on, take it at really high rates? And that's what happens. So all those are obviously not good ideas. They're going to be unrepresentative. So what's the right answer? Well, obviously, it would be great if you could take everyone's order. But for a little thing like pizza, it's going to cost more than the pizza itself, the $5 that everyone chipped in. So the second best thing you can do is a scientific survey of orders. And in fact, that is how we know anchovies are America's least favorite pizza topping, because someone actually did a scientific survey. Like pepperoni's #1. Cheese is good, right? Pineapple is not that good. Pineapple and anchovy is probably not included in the survey, but it sounds horrific. So anyway, you get the idea, right? But you might have a really noisy group that gets behind any one of those, and that has an influence on us because that's how our brains are wired. Okay, so ultimately, in a nutshell, do the people in my sample look just like the people not in my sample? That's the key to thinking about what representative, what scientific, what that really means. Is there any way they might be different? And I'll give you a quick overview of a case study on that we did with Harvard Kennedy School. So we had the benefit of a bunch of grad students that went to all kinds of meetings. They tracked people who took an online survey, promoted on social media and everything. And we compared a project for a new community center. So there were 5 elements: health and social services, exercise equipment, adult daycare, sports, and study meeting and event space. This was the in-person meeting. And you're probably thinking, what did that look like? Probably obviously different from the community, older or younger. Yeah, 81% were over 60. So that's an easy thing to see. Demographically, that is not a good representation of your whole community. And they did the online survey, and they pushed it out into the world. Promoted with social media, email, and so on. And they got the same results. You go, okay, great. Well, the data matches, and you think that's going to be younger or older than the meeting? Well, yeah, younger, of course. And it looks a lot closer to what the whole community looks like. So then we did the scientific survey using our FlashVote scientific panel. We also do random sample surveys. And in this case, 3 out of the 5 things were actually reversed. And you might be thinking, oh gosh, well, how are our demographics different? The easy to see visible things. Well, when it comes to age, for example, they were not. What's that hidden thing that's happening there? That's the self-selection. And that's the hard thing to visualize when you're doing a quote survey. So I'm going to jump ahead to, since Ali did such a great job of explaining stuff. The summary is traditional methods of community input or bias. That's the report. If you think social media is a good representation of the public, you are too drunk to drive. That would be the Mark Weaver social media law expert approach. So two takeaways. Are we collecting comments or measuring percentages? Takeaway one really is a questionnaire is not a survey. A survey is a sample. You can survey bugs in your yard or trees in a forest or anything else. Measuring percentages is where you need that representative sample. And then collecting comments, you can do however you want. And engagement's great for collecting comments and collecting really helpful comments too for people who are most interested in the topic. So scientific surveys is getting input from people not particularly interested in the topic. Engagement is really about getting input from people who are interested in the topic, but never count comments. That's what our brains are wired to do. And we're wired to react to the people in front of me. That's the challenge. So I have 1 minute left here. I'll give you the quick transportation survey that we did that Allie's talking about, one of them. So the flash vote surveys are designed to be super easy for everyone to take in, to understand. We have what are the nerd word is crosstabs built into tabs, so you can see differences by age, by male, female, by parts of town, and they tell the story. They'll tell it. Not, you don't want to know, hey, what does everyone think? You don't want to average away all that information. You just want to know, are there differences? Are we serving everyone equitably? And so flash vote at the end of the day is the easy way to get that data that's going to inform the decision in a way that serves the whole community. It's multi-channel, email, text, phone. It's multilingual, professionally translated to the languages that you need in your community. And we're actually fun to work with. We actually, all over Texas, we work with communities, and also about 35 other lesser states. I'll leave it at that. Thanks for your time and interest, and happy to answer questions later.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I enjoyed the pizza analogy. I think that was great.
Use it. It's effective.
So up next, we have a discussion with Ryan Murray with ETC Institute and Matt Smith from DeSoto, Texas. Ryan is the Assistant Director of Community Research at ETC Institute, the nation's leader in administrating statistically valid surveys. He's made significant contributions to municipalities worldwide. He joined ETC Institute and has led over 1,000 statistically valid survey projects. In the past 5 years alone, he's conducted over 40 surveys in Texas. He also, interesting fun fact about Ryan is that he serves as an elected official in his own city. So he brings a unique perspective and dedication to public service. ETC was organized and founded in 1982 with the mission to help communities make better decisions through a resident-driven, data-focused approach. Joining him, as I said, is Matt Smith from DeSoto, Texas. Matt has more than 30 years of frontline experience in government and political communications and broadcast journalism. He's developed and managed high-profile media and public affairs operations in several U.S. cities. And as the communications manager for the city of DeSoto, Matt's responsible for the city's communications operations. He earned his BA in communications from Loyola University of Chicago and started out as a broadcast journalist, serving as a news and religion correspondent for the UPI radio network and other networks. Matt's a proud TAMIO and 3CMA member who also received his CPC certification from TCU. So thank you, Ryan and Matt, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Connie. Just so everybody knows, Connie and I are currently working together on the Williamson County survey. So if you've been randomly selected and find that survey in your mailbox, I encourage you to please fill it out. I'm seeing Kevin smiling. He knows how difficult that can be on random sampling. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's really fantastic to get to speak to a state that ETC Institute has a really large presence in. Beyond working with Matt and working with Connie, we work with San Antonio and Houston. We work with Dallas and Fort Worth. And so some of the bigger ones, but really, kind of my core, my major focus areas are some of the outliers. So Mesquite, DeSoto, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then, Sugar Land and Round Rock down near Houston and San Antonio. We also do Austin survey. And so we've got a really great presence in the state of Texas. It gives us kind of a unique opportunity to provide some additional services on top of things. But first, I kind of want to talk about how ETC Institute is just a little bit different than what you heard from Flashpoll and Zen City. And the reason that we're a little bit different is we deal with statistically valid surveys, or that representation that Kevin was mentioning. So we're surveying the population, and we're making sure that sample is representative. And so our big key piece there is to make sure that we've got the right demographic questions that we're asking for each community. We want to make sure we're not just scratching the surface, but that we can actually dig in and understand to a really high level of, accuracy, whether or not we've sampled your community accurately. And that's not just demographics, but also geography. So to Kevin's point, sometimes we get those folks that are a little bit older joining our public meetings, but we also see higher zip codes responding to random sampled surveys much more frequently than their lower income counterparts. And so our job is to basically sample these communities in a way that should technically or theoretically drive or give us back a random sample that's representative of your community in terms of age, demographics like race, ethnicity, makeup of your household, how many people in your home, do you have younger folks or older folks in your home, all those good factors. But we know scientifically that should happen, but it doesn't. And so we're randomly sampling your entire community with an address-based modeling system. So we want to make sure all those addresses are included. But we know certain folks respond at much higher rates. And so our job is to kind of continually to follow up with residents in that sample until we reach a goal. And usually that goal is predicated on this idea of the margin of error and how accurate do we want to be. And we'll usually calculate that at the 95% level of confidence, and that'll provide us a plus or minus. On Matt's survey, the most recent one, we had a margin of error of about 5%. And so that kind of gives me that wiggle room in terms of how many white or Black respondents or how many respondents of a particular age I need to collect in order to really get that semblance or that sense of statistical significance in the survey data. That's kind of the methodology or the background. We'll mail those surveys out. We mail those in multiple languages frequently for diverse communities. For Matt's upcoming survey in 2024, we're going to mail the survey cover letter in Spanish, as well as provide a Spanish online version of the survey. In San Antonio, they actually have us mail the entire survey, as well as the cover letter in Spanish. And we do a lot of budget work for them here lately, and we've been doing that. And our relationship began with DeSoto back in 2018 when they had a Parks and Recreation master plan or comprehensive plan that was being developed. And we get brought in as a sub-consultant on those teams frequently just to provide the survey data. And so that's where kind of ETC Institute lives. Kevin and folks with Zen City give you a lot of expertise. They can help you kind of manage the results as they're coming in, determine whether or not we should test different factors. Should we be changing the messaging? Should we change some of the questions up? Kevin gives you a really fast and steady way of getting results within just a few weeks. I think Zen City can do basically the same thing. And then you give me a call at ETC Institute, and I'm like, yeah, well, maybe within 4 months, I could present the results to your council. And so I'm a little bit more of an elongated process. And part of the reason for that is that our surveys are less topic specific. While in 2018, we engaged with the city of DeSoto to do a park specific survey, it was still a 7-page survey. It took folks about 18 minutes to complete online. There's a lot of questions, and that's kind of the hallmark of an ETC Institute survey, is that you're going to spend 15 to 20 minutes completing it. It's going to be comprehensive in the fact that it's going to cover all of your perceptions about quality of life, generally, how do you feel about your community? It's also going to ask you about services you've never heard of, such as your municipal court. We know a lot of residents don't access our municipal courts, but we still will ask those questions in some of these communities. And we'll also ask about other services that everybody receives, like quality of roads or, street maintenance or sidewalk maintenance. And the reason we go in this overall encompassing process is because of the random sampling effort. The fact that we're mailing surveys takes a little bit more time. The representation in the sample is really important to us because communities do these types of surveys less frequently. We have a few clients that have huge data departments internally, and they can really turn around the data to departments and get actionable results out of it in a quick or reasonable amount of time. Most of our clients will do this every 1 to 2, maybe even 2 to 3 years. And it's really a touching base, or, hey, here's our report card. And that kind of brings me to the other thing that ETC Institute does well, which is comparisons. We have a huge presence in the state of Texas. We have other presence in Florida, and then we do a national average as well. So Florida and Texas are kind of our two hubs, along with our home area of Kansas City. And then we have national averages. And what we do is we basically want to contextualize or make sure that we're providing you with results that are in comparison to other results. We're not always going to ask you, could you pay more, or would you be interested in paying more for a service? But we might ask more generally about that service, the appetite for future increases. And then we would do other public engagement, or usually the clients would provide other public engagement to help kind of round out that process. From everything else that we've heard, we know sometimes public engagement can be biased. We know sometimes our online surveys only can sometimes be biased. And so what we always recommend is kind of a multifaceted approach from our clients where, hey, you might use an ETC survey in 2024 to determine whether or not there's an appetite for a tax increase. You might skip the 24 November election to continue to look at that. You might hire Zen City to pulse throughout that next, first 6 months of the next year. And then you might bring in Kevin to kind of pulse again more close to time in terms of what people are actually going to do at the ballot box. And so our surveys are more of a grade card, a measure of how you're comparing to other communities. And then one of the other things that we help clients do is kind of measure performance over time, which I think can provide a lot of insights into how we're using the data, how we might restructure questions in future surveys, and what those trends and changes in respondent behavior is. And that's kind of important to Matt. One of the things that we've done over the last couple of surveys is really kind of develop and really bolster the communication section. Sometimes they don't get a lot of love from communities. Sometimes I work with budget offices and it's more budget finance driven. Sometimes I'll work with public works directors even, and we get a lot of public works or street related questions. Sometimes I'll work with CMO office and it's kind of, high in the sky. It's these big picture ideas that we're asking about. When we have the opportunity to work with a communications professional, somebody in the communications office, we find this more well-rounded approach that focuses on one of these things that ETC Institute has found is a direct impact on satisfaction, which is quality of communication. As communication in these communities suffers, and we can see this on trends lines, so does satisfaction in so many different other areas, particularly street maintenance, because folks aren't understanding that pattern or that maintenance schedule, but also in customer service ratings, as folks aren't hearing from the community more, they rate down on customer service. And between customer service and satisfaction, we know over time, those are two huge factors in continued success in terms of those perception related measures. And that's really where ETC Institute focuses in on, is how are people perceiving the delivery of service. But we give each of our clients an opportunity to ask unique questions that provides them with a little bit of insight each and every year that we conduct the survey to give those leaders the information they need to make decisions. And so that means every year we're going through an update of the survey, folks that are thoughtful, like Matt and, folks like Connie. I assume if we do a second survey, Connie will be reviewing that first one really in depth to make sure we're asking the right questions again. If things didn't land right, we'll be reviewing that. And that's what Matt and I are doing right now for their 2024 survey. I hope I've given everybody kind of a good breakdown of what we do. But for my work, most of the time, it's the clients who carry the torch. We come on site, we present the results, we can give you our insights, our anecdotal evidence as to what we've seen. But folks like Matt and the other folks from other communities throughout the state of Texas are really the ones carrying the torch, bringing the data to the decision makers, interpreting that based on their firsthand experience. And with that, I'm going to kind of pass it along to Matt to kind of give you all an indication or kind of an idea of how he uses or what he sees the usefulness of this instrument.
One of the things we like working with Ryan and ETC Institute on this particular survey is that they'll let us decide how involved you want to get, but still give us a structure. And the reason we started going for surveys, and I know there's a lot of great survey people out there. Kevin, I always enjoy your presentations. And in this particular case, we hadn't done a survey for about a decade. And we had one small firm that had done it. It wasn't electronic. It was like in big books, like you would see in a public recording office in 1970, where they pull it out, slam it on the desk, and start opening up the various pages. But we gave that person a shot when we finally narrowed it down to 3. And then there was, I think it's NRC, which was more like the what do you call them? The blue apron of the survey industry, where they give you the basics and you develop it from there. And my whole thought is it's like going to a restaurant to cook your own steak. Why not just have them cook it or do it at home? So we heard a lot of good things about ETC. Our new city manager at the time, Brandon Wright, had come to us from Davenport, Iowa, and I think that they had used you guys as something. And Christoph Bauer, who was one of our deputy city managers, he had worked with you guys in the past. So once we narrowed everything down, we knew we were dealing with someone, and you were dealing with our park system. So we knew that we knew pretty much who we were dealing with and what you could do for us. And it is helpful. It gave us a baseline. and it was really good to have the involvement of the actual survey provider when we rolled it out to our city council, because we did 2 rollouts. One, the first year, we just had Ryan on electronically and we were sort of spinning it ourselves. The second, we actually flew Ryan in, or that he flew himself in, I guess, and had the presentation. And I found having him there to answer the questions with the city council was good. Also, the survey person can be the bad cop. If a council member doesn't understand something, we're going to be kid gloves as much as possible and try to be deferential to them. Whereas the survey person could go, no, council member, that's not how it works. This is mathematically valid. And we have a great community, a very vocal community. We're just south of Dallas. We have, I'd say it's mostly a majority African-American community with a growing Latino population. So the ability to tailor these questions and also go bilingual and have it available has been helpful. And all this happened, I think we literally did our survey right after there had been some just national total unrest. And we worked with ETC to make sure we put in questions about how do you feel when the police, have you been pulled over by police? Do you feel you've been, talked to for the right reasons? And we sort of like hung that out there. It's sort of like that softball. You throw it up, you want people to have a chance to hit it, but you also don't want to see it going over the fence and running up a score against you. What we found is that DeSoto actually was doing very well compared to other cities. And we could say that because ETC had done a lot of these comparisons with other cities. So that's really good when you bring it out. The other thing is for anyone in the communication business, and I don't know if how much we're going to get into that, Ryan. The people who run a city and the people who attend city council meetings have a very different perception of how effective your communication is. And quite often, the loudest voices, the people with the strongest opinions, they rule the day. That doesn't always help the communications person because we have, we could say, hey, we work hard, we do this, we're on these platforms. It'll be, well, so-and-so doesn't see it. That doesn't really count. But we could actually look at a breakdown of primary sources of information. And when people look at it, our city newsletter, our website, word of mouth, there's a platform I advocate for that a lot of people are afraid of, Nextdoor. They see it as like, I call it the fight club, where you're going to get on it and you're going to be in big trouble and you better have a thick skin. But what they don't realize is Nextdoor protects their users. You don't have interaction between government and the average person out there by design, unless it's in response to our posts. And we could actually measure that. We saw that Nextdoor pulled in 38% support as being the primary source of information. Whereas once you drop down to social networking sites, Facebook and Twitter, it drops down to like 26%. And when you have multiple voices in house, some of them more social media people advocating, well, we're really big into Twitter or we're into Instagram, and that's where the younger people are. That's the perception. But I could always say, hey, we put a lot on Nextdoor and it's well received, and we could prove that because we have our survey. The other thing is, getting back to council, sometimes you get people who just don't believe a survey. So the fact that you survey folks have your mathematical formulas and good reputations, I think that helps us out.
And one of the great things about working with Matt is that they've always got their, one of the things that not everybody here has probably seen, but I see Matt in the community 4 or 5 times a week. Not that I think that you're bragging, but you post it on your city's website, you post it on your own Facebook. We see Matt and his team and the city staff in the community. And that's when we see the results in the survey. And some clients will, just stick with us and we kind of send out the same rubber stamped survey every year. But with Matt, I know that we're going to get some indication of what's gone on over the last year or two. What do city leaders need to know most about? And that's what we'll make sure to include on the survey versus this approach of maybe where NRC was in the past, giving you kind of a boilerplate survey. We have a lot of that because we want to offer those comparisons. We want to make sure we're mindful of trends because, Matt, we almost saw a significant uptick in usage of Nextdoor from 2020 to 2022. We'll be monitoring that for 2024 as well. But it's just really important to make sure that as staff, you're not just rubber stamping our questions. And I know the other two consultants here have a lot more hands-on approach of survey design. And we kind of sit back and allow the clients to help direct us with our expertise there, obviously. But one of the things that's great about working with folks that are in these types of groups, these communication groups, is that you all are listening. And that's one of the things that our survey does really well, is that it listens. It doesn't always provide you with the most actionable result, because we're not able to get it really fast for you. We're not always able to change that messaging, after administration has taken place, but we do our best to follow up. We do our best to listen. And I think, yeah, Matt, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, and you survey types, you're pretty good with the finances. You don't waste money. And when we brought Ryan in to present to our council, he had some tight flight connections. And we're sitting there, we're ready to go. And as luck would have it, we had a delegation of seniors from Dallas who were fluoridation in the water opponents. And they came out in force to sort of take over our city council meeting at that point. And I'm sitting next to Ryan, and he's a very calm guy, but you could see the sweat starting to come down his temple. He's checking his flight agenda and everything else. And I think you actually did make it out. You were literally like Mel Gibson in The Year of Living Dangerously, running after the plane on the tarmac and just literally getting on board. But it's appreciated that everyone here can call on your survey company and get them there to give your guidance. And not to say that everybody's not very humorous on this, but when you have Kevin, I know you get a floor show too. In a good way.
Well, great. Thank you both very much. We did have a question come in from Dustin. He said that we have a lot of free come and go events that makes it hard to issue surveys to people that attended. What tips can you share to get viable event feedback? Anyone care to answer?
Want to go in order, or I don't.
Let's go in reverse order. Let's start with
Reverse
Ryan.
order? Okay, yeah, there you go. Perfect.
For if I'm going first, ETC Institute's not the greatest for this. Now, what I always tell clients is that we have an online survey tool, so that can always be duplicated and reused for events like this. But I think Kevin and AL Zen City are probably much more adept to getting that in person or that very finite amount of time feedback than ETC would, just because we're that male mixed mode methodology. We're a little bit slower.
Yeah, great. So events are interesting. George Gallup actually started by doing in-person surveys. He would randomly select addresses 100 years ago and go talk with people. And so the nice thing about an event, as long as it's not correlated is the nerd word, to the topic you're looking at, and you can get a broad cross-section of people, you can do intercept surveys. And it takes a surprisingly small number of people to actually figure out, hey, is our community over here? Maybe like we're hearing at the meetings or whatever, or over here. And so with just 25 people, 24 actually, you could get plus or minus 20% on your data. Go up to 40 something, and now you're at 15%, right? And if you can get 100-ish, 96, now you're plus or minus 10%. So you can really try to, if you're sampling people, it's the old management by walking around. And some city managers do this really well in their city. They walk around neighborhoods and they talk to people in an outreach basis to get past that self-selection problem. Then you can actually use those events. And if you have a targeted topic different from, again, the event, get some useful data from talking to, say, 40 people.
Yeah, the other thing I'd add too, it's kind of the beauty of flash vote being this thing that we're directing people to all the time. We always have a flash vote sign in with a QR code. So you have these events knowing that you're going to have a survey later, you get them to sign up for the survey, and then you get their feedback with that survey later. So it's just another thing you can do.
Well, I think that's a really great thing to do, and I strongly believe in the QR code idea as well. I think there's two options here from the Zen City perspective. I think one option is just looking at what people are already sharing about the event. Oftentimes, events will encourage a lot of discussion, encourage a lot of activity from the community, and we see a lot of traction on social media, on Nextdoor, that Ryan and Matt were just talking about, and on Facebook and Twitter. So looking at what people proactively posted on social media, post the event, during the event, is something we do a lot with our customers, especially It could be for small event, but definitely for big ones. The other option, Ali, to your point right now is the ability to just post up a QR code at the event. We do that a ton with our customers. You put up a QR code, and then while those won't be the representative surveys that we can do and where we get a scientific sample of the demographic makeup of the community, whatever people showed up at the event, you can scan the code, you can put a bunch of QR codes around the perimeter, and you can use the same link, I'm assuming probably in Flashvote as well, to send out the link after to people who sign up for the event or do anything. And both of these sources, both the QR code and the link, will get you to the same poll, same survey, and have one group of respondents. So I think generally this is a good example to think about. In each instance, what is the level of engagement do I want? When do I want, like, the 75 question, take a few months survey, heavy duty, want to make sure it's representative, which we can do with ETC, we can do with Zensity, we can do with other capabilities. Or when do I want a quick touch point, which you can do with Flashvote or Zensity, or when do I just want to passively look at what people are sharing online? For example, on social media, what is the best fit to the question that we're trying to answer right now?
So one question that I have for you all is, how do you boost participation in your surveys? Ali had mentioned that they were only getting maybe 100 or so. They went to Flashvote. They started getting, they have 1,200 signed up right now, getting over 600 for each survey. So what do you do to boost participation?
Yeah, I'll go first if that's all right, just to piggyback off of that. Like I said, with it being, we're directing them to the same place every time, it makes marketing really easy. We do posts once a month. We usually try to time them around when we're going to have the survey. So it's like, look for our next survey on transportation launching Tuesday. So we get a lot of folks to sign up that way. And then, yeah, any the free like come and go events that we have the Flashvote sign up. We get a lot there. We've been having some spicy town hall meetings. So we're getting some more people to sign up at those, using that for good. And then, yeah, just talking about it whenever we can, but it's really that monthly, just a little push. Sometimes we share the video, sometimes we share like a cute GIF, but it's just being able to just direct people to that same consistent link has been really helpful.
And it's walking a tightrope when you are doing a random survey, because you don't want to build up people's hopes and have 400 people or 4,000 people waiting. Well, we have a 57,000 population. So you could say everybody waiting for their own survey and thinking they're going to be able to input it. Totally opposite random. So what we've done with ETC is we've done the randomized survey, but we've also made a lesser weighted survey available to everyone, which is less scientific. And we find they like that. Now, the other thing is, if you're trying to make sure that you're sticking with the randomized survey, what do you do when your city council members start pushing it? And they have, I mean, to them, it's something you want everybody to know about, but you don't want to build up hopes again too much. That's why we came up with the compromise where we're still doing randomized, but we still have a survey that provides useful data, which anyone who participates can give. But as you all know, the people who tend to participate in a survey and go to meetings have stronger opinions than maybe the average citizen who might not participate at all.
Yeah, a little bit of anecdotal evidence real fast is that we will frequently, for clients like Matt and DeSoto, who do a lot of public engagement, who get the word out about the survey, we get a lot of, hey, I'd like to complete it. Hey, am I going to get one? Hey, here's the link. It really helps placate a lot of that. One of the problems is, how do you weight those two results then? How do you accept the random sample results against the other sample? We'll often compare those for folks. One of the best examples that I have is that the city of Plano did it one time many years ago. They don't want to see the other results anymore. It was heavily weighted older. It was heavily negative. The comments were very terrible. So it's not always that's the case. Sometimes in park surveys specifically, we get almost direct comparative results, even though it is older and more fluent. But when it comes to satisfaction, when it comes to the areas that we're assessing most frequently, which is perceptions and satisfaction, you do find a lot more negative tones, similar to Facebook, similar to what I'm sure Zensity sees on Nextdoor when you're trying to find those voices or find those topics. I think I cut off at y'all, so excuse me.
No, please, Ryan. If I could just add, I know we're on time, but I'll be quick. I think it really relates to me all the time to the question of what is the right tool to use at the right moment. So, for example, to the differentiation Matt and Ryan just made, right, between general participation, like as many responses is better, versus a scientific survey that we know is demographic. Those are two, I would take two very different approaches in promoting. Like, for example, in a whoever wants to participate, doing meetings and all the incredible work that Ali's team is doing on promoting, the Flashwood link. That's really great that we get as many answers as possible. On the scientific survey, I think it's all about controlling who's answering and removing barriers to allow the people that you want to answer. Like, for example, in our representative surveys, we find people online in the places that they're spending time by targeting them with a specific ad. So, we're targeting 100 Latina women, 30 to 45 in this zip code, with ads that are targeted specifically to them. And because we're meeting them with an ad in their device, and we can set the language to the device they're set to, and it's an ad that they would have seen anyway, it's something that's a much easier lift than a different survey that they need to fill out, or some other activities like showing up to City Hall and coming to a meeting. And how do we continue to remove barriers to the population we want to answer most is my main question in the scientific surveys.
I guess since I haven't talked, I'll just give you the 30-second version. So yeah, it's surprising to people. More responses is not better, because it usually is an indication that you have a hot topic, that you've gotten self-selection, that you have a batch of people. So our solution is actually to separate the two. We actually keep track of the scientific sample and the unscientific sample at the same time. And as Ryan mentioned, it's really useful for people to know the difference, because they want to know not just what does the data say, the real data. You need to explain to them why the noise they're hearing is different. And so we're able to present them the real data. And by the way, here's why you're probably hearing this. And that helps them get out of their own head a little bit. So that I'll leave you with that thought. It's helpful.
Josh, I think you're muted.
Unmuted and then muted again. You'd think I know how to use this platform by now. I was just saying that was really spectacular. This has been one of my favorite webinars so far, because this topic is so fascinating. So I want to thank you all for contributing to it and being a part of this. And thank you for asking all the questions and all the participants. That's all the time we have for today. The webinar will be posted to the website and to Tamio YouTube after the fact. And then keep an eye out for next month's webinar. We're going to be talking about the new Title II ruling with the Department of Justice attorney. So thanks, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you all.